Hey y'all, how are we doing? Welcome to the final session of the Scaling Atlassian track, which is a little bittersweet, but we saved a really good one for the last. And we have two great presenters here from IBM, Taylor Frank and Kevin Martin, who will be presenting Herding Wild Ducks, Deploying and Scaling Jira at IBM. Now, when I was doing my preparation for doing the introduction for this track, I had reached out to all the speakers and asked them to send me some fun facts that I could just kind of reel off as I was introducing them. So Taylor gave me a lot to work with that I have to reference my phone here. So she said when she worked in college radio, she had a number of fun little factoids that came up. One was that she worked on a children's show on Sunday mornings called The Dick and Jane Show for Wayward Children. Another was because of her college radio days, she never had to pay for tickets for South by Southwest in Austin, and never will again, which is a pretty sweet deal because those cost an arm and a leg. And then another one is one day, again because of the college radio days, she came home to find Green Day in her house. So she gave me all of those, and then there's Kevin. He didn't give me any. So with that, I'd love to introduce Taylor and Kevin, who are going to give you an awesome session right now. So give it up.
Am I live? Okay, awesome. Hi, y'all. Taylor Frank from IBM Austin. And little programming note, I'm a little nervous, so my accent's going to come out. If you talk to me later, it won't exist whatsoever. So that's a well-deployed twang is just like a good shield. So I've been at IBM for about 20 years. And most of my tenure there was pretty boring. We started our Agile journey 4 or 5 years ago, and so a couple years ago, I had the great good fortune of shedding the boring skin and trying on a whole new persona as the product owner for a portfolio of productivity tools that we offer to our IBMers internally. And part of that came with the mission to deploy Jira at IBM. Now, there are 178 different instances of Jira around IBM, so it's not really a new thing, but what we wanted to do is kind of get some control over that chaos because there were so many, there wasn't any unified governance, there was no singular instance, and everybody was across all platforms. We wanted to get some control over that. So Jira at IBM was born. And we're here today to tell you a little bit about that journey. My co-presenter, Kevin Martin, came on about halfway through our project. At the beginning, there were just 2 of us who were missioned with this, and we figured out that we were going to need some more muscle. Kevin is a super smart dude, and he's capable of tackling any tricky problems. He happened to be on paternity leave at the time, and I will not lie, I completely took advantage of the fact that he was not sleep sober when I called him up and laid out what the mission was, what was ahead of us, and what we needed to do. Because, oh, by the way, we were told we needed to deploy this in 2 to 4 months, and it needed to be deployed on IBM Cloud, which is a business-to-business cloud hosting service that IBM sells externally to customers. And it's a proprietary hosting environment that comes with platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, and then other services that we can wrap around that to help people onboard and build out their solutions. We didn't know anything about it. So not a small job, and Kevin was just like, I'm in. He was undaunted by the magnitude of our endeavor. And so our little team grew, and we're still a small team. We've added some more muscle and are now a fighting flock of 5 dedicated to Jira at IBM. Oops. So a little bit about IBM. So you guys probably are aware that IBM is a behemoth. We have about 500,000 employees and contractors across the globe in every single geo and every single time zone. And the company itself is 108 years old. So back in 1911, when the company started, it was computing, tabulating, and recording company. It was the amalgamation of 4 different companies that made machinery that did industrial weights and measures, meat and cheese slicing, employee record tabulating, and employee time card punch machines. So in 1924, the company officially became International Business Machines, IBM. And in our over 100-year history, IBM has been perpetually transforming itself. So we went from measuring employee time and charcuterie to developing mainframes that put people on the moon, to personal computing that powered a revolution in education and business, and servers that put us all on the interwebs, and services wrapped around those that help businesses and schools and governments operate in this ever increasingly interconnected universe. To where we are now with blockchain and AI and Watson and cognitive and on and on and on into our future. So IBM was agile before agile was even cool, before it was a thing, before all the cool kids got in a room and wrote a whole manifesto about it. IBM was in the process of changing itself over and over again, and that's because of one thing: ducks. At IBM, we have a saying: treasure wild ducks. In 1924, when we became IBM, Thomas J. Watson was named our very first chairman, and he brought with him a leadership style and an approach to business that became core to IBM and fostered a foundational philosophy of restless reinvention. He adapted a story from Soren Kierkegaard into a quote. At IBM, we frequently refer to our need for wild ducks. The wild ducks are the creative ones. They're the restless explorers who are always looking for a new angle on a big problem. Now, this really resonates with me, and it really speaks to the core component of Agile in that it recognizes the need for flexibility in both strategy and execution. And it certainly was appropriate as a motto or a battle cry for us in Jira at IBM, because that mission required a lot of flexibility, a lot of ingenuity, and cat herding. Except, of course, cats, while certainly unique and cool and DIY punk rock kind of mythos, aren't cloud native. Ducks are. So it came time for us to start building our team. We had to think about what we were going to do, how we were going to build that team. And we wanted to make sure we kept it as a small team because, as we all know, small, agile teams are able to maneuver quickly and shift and pivot and make decisions more rapidly. So we got kind of smart about it. We looked at some of the documentation that's provided through the Atlassian community and by Atlassian and through our TAM program. And we decided to kind of create a flight formation. So similar to ducks and our formation, we have your product owner kind of out front, leading the flock, providing direction, and then flanking your product owner, we have your platform administrators on your left flank. And they're responsible for all the customizations and all the data migrations, end-user support, all the user-facing work. And then on my right flank, we have operations administrators, just handling all of the back-end infrastructure and technology, making sure that the platform's up-to-date, upgraded, that the storage is in place, doing all the performance monitoring, executing backups, all of that fun, sexy stuff, right? And that's really what we're going to spend most of our time talking about today. And so I'm going to hand it over to Kevin.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Taylor. Round of applause for her. Thank you. I was actually so engaged, I forgot I was talking next. So as Taylor mentioned, I joined the team, and of course, she did call me up when I was ending paternity leave. And of course, the other side of that conversation after she hung up was, great, I can do that. Oh, wait, I don't have any idea what Jira is really and how that works and what the back end is. So there was a bit of a moment of realization there of what the actual challenge was. So I had to really go from being a noob to an expert pretty quickly. I'm still working on the expert title. I don't necessarily claim that just yet, but I think we've been pretty successful thus far. And I wanted to share that with you guys of what we did to get to that road. And I had asked our TAM and our guides who were helping us present this, what would be relevant for you guys? And it sounded like maybe more generic topics of what we did, what tools we used in order to accomplish our goal in a short time frame that we were provided. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So of course, being a noob, you have to start off someplace to get up to date with it. So I started off with documentation. And documentation is pretty great to start with, but as many of you system admins know, it's not always as detailed. In many cases, it starts off kind of like this meme here, how to draw an owl in 2 steps. Step 1, draw a couple of circles. Step 2, draw the rest of the damn owl. There's a pretty big delta between those two, so there you go, picture opportunity. There you go. And to fill in the gaps there, I needed to rely on a number of different resources. So the first resource that we relied on was our TAM. Our TAMs were pretty fantastic to help bridge the gaps in the knowledge that they provided online. They also gave us some experience from what other enterprise businesses were doing. So we didn't have to start from scratch and reinvent the wheel. We could kind of gain ideas and perspectives. And of course, they became a trusted resource when it came to important things like add-ons. What types of add-ons are out there and what's scalable for large enterprises. We also relied heavily on the community resources. So thank you for all of y'all's contributions to the Atlassian community and other summit videos from last year. I've watched pretty much all of those through. I highly recommend a lot of the ones from LinkedIn. Those were fantastic, highly detailed presentations. And of course, the last bit here is we explored existing instances. As Taylor mentioned, there's well over 170 different instances floating around at IBM, all of them siloed and fractured in their configuration. Nobody really has a unified login, let alone type of customization or project layout that teams are using. So it's all over the place. So it was a big challenge to come in and try to figure out what was really going to be needed. So we started with a proof of concept, as most people do. And with that proof of concept, we wanted to try to identify 4 major areas. How were we going to scale the project or our instance, maintain that growth over time? And we're talking about potential for hundreds of thousands of users with millions of issues. So we really need to think big, even though we're starting very small. What was the experience going to be like for our end users? How are they going to log in? How are they going to create projects? What kind of customizations those projects were going to have? What level of permissions we were going to grant them? All the interaction elements of it. How are they going to get support? We also needed to fortify that environment. Backup, making sure that it's reliable and doesn't got a lot of downtime. And then, of course, how are we going to evolve over time? During our proof of concept build out, we had to change direction quite a lot of times. So we had to evolve during this build out. So what we have today is certainly will be different next year. Hopefully we get to come back and we can talk about all the differences that we've made since then. So the first thing that we did was we started with the simplest path of resistance, and we went with Jira Cloud. This is a pretty great solution, as y'all have all seen thus far at Summit. It provides a simple SaaS solution to get up and running. We started with this because, and this is actually before I had actually joined the team, Taylor and them really were looking for more feedback from the users about how they were going to be interacting with the environment when we were first building this product out. And they started with a very Spartan approach. So no add-ons, no integrations. They just wanted to get feedback from the users on the actual platform themselves. Started off pretty great. Unfortunately, we had to pivot. And really, we had to pivot for two main reasons. We had some scalability issues. As y'all know, there was a limit on the amount of users that you could have in it, which worked for our pilot, but we're well beyond even the 10,000 user limit that they recently bumped it up to. So we're excited to see that Atlassian has committed to 10xing that. We definitely would love that. We also wanted to address some security and compliance concerns. As y'all know, IBM is very protective when it comes to security and data governance. So there was really a huge requirement for us to bring this in-house and have this in IBM Cloud to begin with. So that brought us to Jira Software Server. So Jira Software Server gave us a lot of huge wins. One, we could get it in IBM Cloud. It was compliant with IBM services and standards, and it was highly customizable. And most notably, during this build-out process, we were actually able to create a whole bunch of runbooks. And I highly recommend, if y'all aren't documenting every process of your setup, do that. Because it really became a lot easier when we were trying to go back later to figure out problems and solutions, to know exactly what we did and how we did it. And even better, as we started to grow our team, I was able to turn these runbooks over to the team, and they were able to get up and running pretty quickly on what the concepts that we had in place are already available to us. And we also turn these around and try to provide them to fellow IBMers who are also looking to spin up their own instances for whatever reason. Of course, we also had opportunities with just a single server. Obviously, there's a single point of failure with that. It's got limited scalability because you're limited to the hardware that's in the platform on that one server. And no matter what you're trying to do, you're going to get downtime constantly whenever you did an update or any type of maintenance to that product or an upgrade to it. So there was no other choice than to go to data center. But because we had started off with a good understanding of what we were needing to have in place, and we were able to build out a successful proof of concept in a single server environment, it actually became a lot easier for us. So we utilized the bare metal servers that are hosted in IBM Software. This gave us full power over our environment to be able to run those servers. We also used Postgres databases that were hosted in IBM Enterprise Compose clusters. The Enterprise Compose clusters actually provide a dedicated environment for those databases, so we know that they're secure and reliable, and they're not going to be sharing resources with other platforms that have different databases. And IBM, of course, also offers a NFS-based file storage system with 12 terabytes of storage at a 48,000 IOPS. The IOPS are the read-write speed for how quickly the data can be stored on there. 48,000 is fast. It's very fast. We actually didn't even need full 12 terabytes, by the way. We just started with 2 just to see where we needed to go. And we haven't even come close to hitting that as a storage limit at the moment. It's mostly logs that are taking up all the room. We're going to figure out another solution for that. And we also needed, of course, to have some type of good backup solution in place. So IBM Cloud offers an IBM Cloud backup that's available for bare metal servers. This IBM Cloud, this actually used to be branded eVault. I think they recently purchased it and folded it into the blue mix there. But it provided an easy and a fast and a secure and a reliable method for backing up all the granular elements of our platform, including each individual node and the NFS databases. And of course, with our Postgres database, that has built-in backup tools as well. There were some solutions that we outsourced to other products. These are actually products that were available to us as IBMers to begin with. So we started with our load balancers. The load balancers are still hosted as bare metal systems. There are actual load balancers that are provided pre-built for you from IBM Cloud. We went this direction because we love Nginx, and we found that to be an incredibly easy solution for us to get critical things like sticky sessions and being able to transfer end users to the appropriate nodes based upon performance requirements for those nodes. Monitoring, we relied upon New Relic, and we paired New Relic with incident management provider PagerDuty. So of course, if we have any type of issue that we have set up infrastructure-wise, we can get alerted right away. It has some information for our applications as well that will alert us. And of course, we do all of our incident management through PagerDuty. So if we get notified, we have this actually linked to Slack. So we have a war room in Slack that we just go in and do all the work there. And once somebody has identified a problem that needs to be made aware to the community, we can do that within Slack very easily as well. And of course, for security, one of the solutions that we have in place is Signal Sciences. Signal Science is a phenomenal solution for intrusion protection. Here's actually a breakdown of some of the critical things that we focused on when we were working with our hardware. We wanted to make sure that we had the best performance we possibly could get. We actually tried to err on the side of awesome in just about everything here. So we maxed out everything that we could with an SSD. All of our servers are running RAID 10 configurations to make sure that they have smooth performance at both speed and durability. We maximize the memory with a whopping 128 gigabytes per memory per node. And of course, our processors there are pretty high up power too. I put that on there. I'm not going to read that whole thing for you guys, but it's really powerful. That gives us 72 cores per server or per processor. We also wanted to focus on specific settings that made our environment very secure. So we use firewalls on every server, including the nodes. It's common practice among some to not have the firewalls enabled on the nodes because it's in your private VLAN. Of course, this opens up a potential security risk for us. So we wanted to make sure that that was encrypted and blocked throughout the entire process. So we also utilized HTTPS encryption from the load balancers to the nodes as well. And of course, as you saw, performance-wise, we don't really have too much problem with the hardware, so the extra bit of encryption usage there isn't a problem for us. We put all of our servers with SSH access, all of the nodes to have SSH access, and we disabled root admin and disabled password-based login. This is important because this will minimize the risk of somebody trying to do a brute force attack on your servers on a regular basis, even if they can get past the Signal Science solutions that we have. And we isolated those nodes from public access behind a secure private VLAN, disabled all public SSH access for those. So you have to be on the secure IBM Cloud VPN in order to be able to log in. So we really take this very seriously, and we try to maximize the performance as much as possible, but also make sure everything was locked down really well. We actually were very successful at our setup. We were up and running within about 2 months from having our single server to our data center. Part of the reason why we're so successful, though, is that we really had to rely on some add-ons. We actually have quite a few add-ons that we use, but these 6 add-ons I'm going to talk about today are very particular for us because they really helped us get up and running very quickly and provide a good experience for our end users. So, of course, we started with these 3 solutions. SAML single sign-on. They're in the crowd, I think, maybe. If they are, give them high fives. If not, boo. SAML single sign-on, they actually provided us the ability to have a just-in-time configuration for our end users, and we're able to link into IBM's W3ID authentication solution. So if a user gets to our site, they log into the web page, they see a prompt for SSO, they sign in, their user account is immediately created within IBM, or within that database. We copy in their username and their email address to create that account. Once they're in, what can they do? Well, as y'all know, having customizations opened up to anybody to create will basically bring your instance to its knees no matter how powerful it is. So we had to limit the amount of access our users would have, but give them the ability to be able to create these projects on the fly very quickly. So we utilized these 2 add-ons, Delegated Project Creator to be able to create templates for various different business uses or software development uses. Our admins, Mark and Joe, who's back at the office holding the fort down for us, they go in, they take a feedback pulse from our end users as far as what kinds of customizations. Knowing the feedback usage that we got from our initial proof of concept on cloud, we could get a basic idea of what users wanted, and we're able to build something very easy for them. And now with Delegated Project Creator, when they sign in, they see a nice little button that says Create Project from Template. They select it. They have a series of templates that's available to them to select from. They pick it, and they can create it. The only backfire on that is that we had teams that were just creating a whole bunch of projects because they wanted to try out different schemes, but they didn't know how to switch between them. So we utilized Delegated Project Admin Pro to give teams the ability to switch the schemes on their own. So we could create a number of different schemes for such as notifications, and the team project admins can select which scheme is better fit for their team on the fly without having to go to the admins as a bottleneck. We also wanted to make sure that we could stay connected with our end users, so we utilized Announcer by Witified. This is a great solution for prompts of banners, dialogue, full screen dialogues. We actually utilize it for terms of service. So when somebody first signs into our environment, we can actually prompt them with the terms of service that they have to agree to in order to continue to use it. So no excuses as far as GDPR rules go. And then, of course, part of the problem that we were having earlier was we were getting a whole bunch of users creating projects that were basically dummy projects that we didn't need in our environment. So we utilized Optimizer. They were previously branded Cleaner. Also fantastic guys. They're out on the floor. If they're in here as well, clap for them. Yeah, there we go. Give a round of applause for them. Fantastic solution. We actually were able to go and identify all those empty projects that had a certain amount of issues and delete them with no concern. Made it life a lot easier. Our admins love this platform. We're real excited to see where they go with that for further optimizations. And we use Script Runner. Script Runner, of course, you guys are probably familiar with, especially if y'all were at their party last night. Fantastic guys. So dehydrated. Script Runner provides some fantastic solutions for us to really modify our environment, to really make it unique to us and fit our style and needs. Things like navigation bar buttons that link to internal help documents for our documentation for using the platform and such. All of these things combined wound up giving a very streamlined, scalable, highly available experience for our environment. Matter of fact, we currently rock a 99.9% uptime with our platform. When we launched it, we haven't taken it down. For any need, at least publicly, we have done maintenance updates on nodes and load balancer things, but the end users have no idea that it's happening. And anytime that there was a problem that we needed to inform them of, we were able to make that very clear and provide that information to them inside of a incident management solution through PagerDuty and Slack. We're really excited about where we're at right now. We know that we're new. We're new to here, and we're new to the platform, and I'm new to this. But if y'all have questions about how we did this, feel free to come up and ask me. If you have questions about these add-ons, feel free to ask me about my experience with them or go and check them out at their booth. They're great people. Thank you very much. I'll go ahead and pass it back to Taylor, and she'll give you a wrap-up.
I think one of the things that Kevin forgot to mention was this 99.9% uptime is really cool because in our just 6 months that we've been operating this, we have experienced 1,000 user a week adoption, and that continues to accelerate too as the word of the good news of Jira at IBM gets spread around the company. So the fact that the platform is growing at an exponential rate, this uptime is extraordinary. And as you can see from what we've presented so far, that ours is a team that is truly agile, and we experienced a few directional shifts in our journey to Jira Data Center. We are quickly becoming in spite of our relative newness, the center of competency inside IBM for deploying Jira internally and acting as consultants for those teams who do have a genuine business need for their own independent instance. We have accomplished this by fostering an environment that is defined by open teamwork and turning lessons learned into best practices. So let's take a look at our lessons learned. So as Kevin mentioned, run books, developing playbooks from the time you start is very important. So we relentlessly document. We document everything. Those playbooks are very helpful in onboarding new admins. They are very helpful in making it easier for you to support. They also provide you a starting place when you want to go back and look at opportunities to automate. You can go back and look at your whole process from end to end because you've documented it, and it provides you an opportunity to identify what are the stupid things that I can automate. Also, don't forget to use your resources. We've mentioned the TAM experience that we've had and all of the wonderful material that you guys have provided to us through the communities. There's also OGs that you can join in your local area that provide lots of opportunities to learn from other folks. We also utilize, because we're a really small team, internal to IBM, we have a service reliability engineering team that we borrowed. So we borrowed people from another flock and pulled them into ours. And they flew with us for a bit. And then when were kind of done tapping those knowledge bases, we released them back into other flocks where they could be useful, and then we would go along our way. And then, of course, talk to people who had deployed their own instance around the enterprise. Find out, what were their lessons learned? What were their bottlenecks? What did they experience? So we could learn from their mistakes. So definitely using your resources. We also had somebody working from one of our sister squads who, while we were in the process of building out our platform, he was in the process of doing all of our help documentation and getting all of that, working through our help desk, making sure that they had all of the incident handling documentation that they needed, so that when we pushed play and deployed, on day one, our users had documentation to go to find out, what is this thing, how do I get on, how do I set up a new project, and how do I get working? So again, borrowed a flock member and then released him back when we were done with that particular piece of work. You gotta bring governance game. Governance is vital. As you all know, you can administer yourself into a black hole with Jira. The customizations are incredible and powerful, but if you're not careful, you don't document it, you don't have a reason why you're doing it, and you don't govern that super hard, you're gonna bring your instance to its knees. So we maintain tight administrative control on customizations. We push teams to adopt standards that can be widely used. The templates that Kevin referenced, we established basic templates that people can use. And then we have a process for them to request template customizations, field customizations, custom workflows, and that process is visible and transparent to our users as well. Utilizing the site reliability engineers to help us set service level objectives and then building our governance around that to enable best-in-class governance was very important. Other lessons learned: build with the foresight that change is inevitable. Be ready to pivot. And when you do, follow change control processes to the letter and do not skip a step. You build and document in development. You test and verify in staging, and then you deploy in production. If you do it backward, you skip any steps, you're gonna run into problems. Also, make sure that you build for scale. Assume that if you build it, they will come. Now, my EA is gonna kill me because you don't have to buy all the licenses. You can do just-in-time true-up, but build your infrastructure like you're gonna get bum rushed. And then finally, when you are ready to scale, scale smart. And we do that by treating all migrations. We've got 178 instances, and we're trying to bring as many of those as possible into our instance. So we do that by treating every single instance as a program and every single project within that instance as a migration project. And we have 3 main steps that we follow in doing this, and this is a repeatable process. We execute discovery, so disco. Find out what are the workflows, what are the customizations, what add-ons do you have already in your environment that you need, that we need to carry over. And then we take that information, and we go into our instance, we customize, we templatize, and then we migrate. And when all that's said and done, we retro, rinse, repeat. So, best practices. Feedback is a gift, it really is. You need to retro everything that you do. Learn from your mistakes, learn from the mistakes of others who have done this as well. Document all issues that occur. Execute blameless postmortem so you can identify the root cause of the issue and ensure that that mistake doesn't happen again. Conduct user surveys so that you can understand what your users want and get their processes and their workflows built into your base platform so that it's ready and available to them from jump. Make sure to stay flexible too. Be ready for sharp turns. As you saw, we had to pivot a few times. And don't be afraid to completely scrap it if you can't pivot from where you are. We certainly did that. We went from cloud to server to data center. Be ready to aim, shoot, and adjust. I probably shouldn't use that since we're using this whole duck metaphor, so retro, rinse, repeat. Also, make sure that you're coming at this with a user-first mindset. Always consider the customer's journey. We really worked hard on this, and so we wanted to make it dead simple for them to get on. Simple as logging in through our SSO. And then all you have to do is find the project that you want to work on or create one, and then Bob's your uncle. You get going, get working. We also made sure that we had the documentation easily accessible from our dashboard so that you can get to the help documentation right from inside the platform. Making it easy for you to request any sort of features and customizations and to see where your request is in the process so that that whole process is transparent. Also, make sure that you have a disco party. Every time you're going to implement anything in your platform, or if you're just getting started, have the disco party. Do the work up front to plan and take advantage of your awesome resources through the Atlassian community, through your TAM, through all of the people around you who have deployed an instance. Get feedback and insight from other enterprise deployments. Work with existing folks to understand what their bottlenecks were and identify common issues. Make sure that you also take time to execute a solid plan or create a solid plan and then test it before you implement. Taking the time up front to do the planning and then test your environment will ensure that your solutions work as expected, right? That investment up front will pay dividends on the back end. And then finally, of course, teamwork makes the dream work. But do make sure that you keep it lean. Again, we are 5 people in Jira at IBM, very small team, and we borrow members from other flocks to fly with us on our path. And then we release them off when we don't need those resources anymore. Mo people, mo problems. You can't move and be nimble and pivot quickly if you have a huge organization behind you. So bring in the knowledge resources that you need when you need them, release them back to other flocks where they can be better utilized, and keep your team small. So in closing, si se puedes. Nothing's impossible. If we could herd all the wild ducks that we had flying around and at us to go from a proof of concept pilot and Jira Software single server platform to a scale-ready production Jira data center deployment in record time with a really small flock, you can do it too. Real quick, some folks who could not come with us. We mentioned the sort of borrowed birds from other flocks. We had some great folks who couldn't be with us, our SREs, our documentation guru. We've got a really awesome group of folks who are our admin and ops platform folks out in Littleton. And we've got a badass product owner who took over for me, who has taken the platform in directions I never could have imagined. So I really want to say thank you. And I'm not going to have time for questions, so you guys feel free to come up to us and buy us a drink at Bash. We'll be happy to talk to you afterwards. Thank you so much.